You are listening to the Booktrospective Podcast, a podcast for all types of books. And even though we read all types of books across all different types of genres, we want to give a disclaimer. Many of our books and a lot of our content sometimes is intended for mature audiences. And we don't believe in censorship, but we do want our listeners to have the opportunity to decide if our episode or podcast is good for them. So, with that, let's get into the episode. Hey, it's Dominique.
And Keely.
And you are listening to Booktrospective. And this week, we are doing Wreck the Halls by Tessa Bailey, which, if you follow us on Instagram, I did make a post because, I don't know, I think I was excited to read this. And we were supposed to do 5 Total Strangers this week, but then I started posting content for Wreck the Halls, and like 2 days in, I was like, oh, wait, wrong book. So, I'm so sorry if you were anticipating that. Pause for next week and enjoy this one. But yeah, so we're doing Wreck the Halls, and I'm very much excited to talk about it. I enjoyed it, but before we do that, I'll ask Keely about her week.
I had a really good week. I signed the lease on the new location for the bookstore, so that's fun. We're gonna have a new recording space and everything too. So, and found out my sister. I've mentioned a few weeks ago that she was pregnant, and found out that she's having a girl, so that's exciting. Had a great week.
Yay. Girls are the best.
What about you?
I've had a good week too. What have I done this week? My brain doesn't work. I don't know. I don't feel like I've done a lot, but it's been good. I've just been, it's that time in between Thanksgiving and Christmas where it's just like, nothing really matters.
Yeah.
I'm just coasting till my winter break, so that's pretty much it. So, okay, well, so Wreck the Hall, so I will just give an extra content warning that it is spicy. It's not the spiciest book in the world, but it is spicy. Mm-hmm. I liked it. But I have no idea what I'm going to say, actually say. I take notes and then I just talk, so if spice is not your thing, or if you're at work and you feel like maybe you should listen to this at home, I just wanted to tell you that. But yeah, so Keely will give us the blurb.
Yes. A sexy, hilarious standalone holiday rom-com about the adult children of 2 former rock stars who team up to convince their estranged mothers to play a Christmas Eve concert. Melody Gallard may be the daughter of music royalty, but her world is far from glamorous. She spends her days restoring old books and avoiding the limelight. One awkward tabloid photo was enough, thanks. But when the producer offers her a lot of money to reunite her mother's band on live TV, Mel begins to wonder if it's time to rattle the cage, shake up her quiet life, and see him again. The only other person who could wrangle the rock and roll divas, Beat Dawkins, the lead singer's son, is Melody's opposite. The camera loves him. He could charm the pants off of anyone, and his mom is not a potential cult leader. Still, they might have been best friends if not for the legendary feud that broke up the band. When they met as teenagers, Mel felt an instant spark, but it's nothing compared to the wild, intense attraction that builds as they embark on a madcap mission to convince their mothers to perform one last show. While dealing with the rockstar shenanigans, a 24-hour film crew, brawling Santas, and mobs of adoring fans, Mel starts to step out of her comfort zone. With Beat by her side cheering her on, she's never felt so understood, but Christmas Eve is fast approaching, and a decades-old scandal is poised to wreck everything. The Steel Birds reunion, their relationships with their mothers, and their newfound love.
Woo! Sorry if you hear stuff in the background. Also, I don't know what's going on in Keely's building. There's never anyone here, but it's our cities. They're lighting the Christmas tree tonight and stuff, so the entire downtown is packed with people. Until we started recording podcasts, I have never seen so many events that have occurred downtown.
Same.
And I almost, when we decided on the day, I, looked and I was like, oh, they're, lighting the Christmas tree. But I was like, oh, they don't play music at that. Of course they're playing Christmas music. I don't hear it right now currently. So, again, we've been doing this.
There's
Just
always something, though.
stick with us, and hopefully, and soon we'll be at a different location that'll have different sounds. But yeah, so I am prepared this week, I think. So, spoiler-free summary. This book, Wreck the Halls, is a very cute Christmas. There's not like, I don't know. I saw people on Goodreads are like, oh, they have nothing to do with Christmas. I don't know how to make it more Christmassy, I guess, but it centers around the month of December and it leads up to Christmas Eve. So there's that. And it follows Melody, Mel, and Beat, who their mothers were in a rock band called Still Birds. Beat's mom is Octavia, and she's kind of like a middle-aged socialite, and they live in New York. And then Mel still lives in New York, but her mom has moved away. Her mom is Trina, and she lives in New Hampshire on what they believe is a compound. And essentially, no one knows what broke up the band, but they broke up when they were pregnant. And so Beat and Melody have actually only ever met once. They met when they were 16 for like a documentary about the band, and now they are 30 and they are going to be reunited because there is a producer named Danielle who wants to try to get the reunion to happen and get it on television. And I'm laughing at the outside sounds. I'm trying to think. So their moms hate each other. So they haven't met each other, one, because they separated, but their moms also actively hate each other. And their names are Beat and Melody because they were pregnant, and so they were supposed to like be like the next duo, like the next best thing. But Melody was treated like so bad by the media. Obviously, she went through her teenage years. I mean, just, you guys know how social media and stuff is. That's basically what they did to her. Meanwhile, Beat is like this heartthrob, handsome, lovely America's boyfriend kind of thing. And he's a good guy, though. And when they met when they were 16, they had like a very brief interaction, which Mel fell head over heels like the rest of the world. And now that they're reunited, they are getting to know each other. And they both don't think that their moms are going to agree to this because, again, they hate each other. But Beat has been put in a situation that he needs this to work out for him, because if they are able to get their moms to reunite, they get $1 million. And Mel, just because she has an estranged relationship with her mom, wants financial freedom for her mom. So this is a good situation for both of them to attempt. I mean, what do they have to lose, basically? But I guess we'll see what they have to lose. Yeah. And yeah, so basically the whole plan of this is to see, can they get their moms to reunite by Christmas Eve, and what are the consequences of their actions. So, Keely, what's your one word?
My one word, I would probably say festive.
Okay. I'm just gonna say comical. It was a lot of comedy. Like, I enjoyed the comedy, the comedic relief in this so much. Like, she really put the I
think it would make a hilarious like rom-com movie.
Oh yeah, they need to like Lifetime it or Hallmark it or something. It's a little spicy for those channels, but somewhere that I can watch this and enjoy. That is my spoiler-free summary. So if you have not read Wreck the Halls, or if you do not want to be spoiled, then this is your spoiler warning. If you don't care, or you've already read it, then let's get into the book. Also, before I get into this, I do want to say I appreciate all the people who have been like sharing our posts, liking our reel. We had a reel that went like super viral on Instagram.
Yeah, y'all are awesome.
You're amazing. If you would like, share, rate our episodes, our podcasts on Apple or Spotify, that's how we can be able to do more and bring you guys more things. And we want to make this podcast very successful, and so we want to be able to eventually like do Q&As or whatever it is that you guys want, because this is for the listeners. So if you would like share our episodes, share our social medias, like them and rate them, and give us your thoughts. Like, we want feedback and comments. We need someone to talk to besides each other. So please do that. But okay, let's get into this book. So we actually the prologue starts when Beat and Melody are 16 and they meet for the first time in 2009. And Melody sees Beat. He walks into wherever they're having this, like, these interviews. Of course, he's, like, gorgeous. It was raining. Like, the light was probably shining off of him. I don't know. He's gorgeous. That's all I can say. She's instantly, like, attracted to him. She's obviously seen what he looks like. He's always in the media like she is. But she just got braces. She's already, like, socially awkward because of how they treat her. And she said she smiles like a gargoyle. And she's sweaty. And, like, her hair is, like, starting to get frizzy. They're in New York for this documentary. And she says he's effortlessly gorgeous. He has brown hair and light blue eyes. She has brown hair again that's, like, frizzing up. She's sweating. She feels like she's repulsive. She's not, I'm sure. She tells us that her and Beat were named by their mothers, who were a duo for a band called Steel Birds, and that their names were meant to complement each other. So, obviously, he's the beat to her melody. She's the melody to his beat. That kind of thing. That never happened because their moms hate each other now. But that was their intentions, which I thought it was weird that they didn't, like, change their names. Yeah. Like, if it was that big, I was like, wouldn't you change names? But they didn't, so that works out. She tells us her mom is a nudist, and somewhere in here she tells us their names. I didn't even start writing their names down until later. I was like, okay, they're kind of important. So, Melody's mom is Trina, and Beat's mom's name is Octavia. She tells us that her and Beat have never met because of the breakup. And when she gets called for her turn, he asks her to wait and says it's crazy that they're just now finally meeting. And he says he thinks they might have been best friends. But Melody says no, she keeps to herself, and he's very extroverted. They're basically opposites, which he agrees. And he said he noticed all the tabloids and how mean they are to her and asks, like, does that bother her? She says no, but then she admits pretty quickly that, yes, it does. And he tells her that basically one of the articles had said she was a lemon, basically. And he's like, you're not a lemon, you're more like a peach. So cute. I know. So they shake hands, and then he, like, hugs her. He's like, forget the handshake. I'm going to hug you. And we find out that he lives in New York. He lives in LA currently. So he says he doesn't know when he'll see her again. But what happened to their moms shouldn't affect their relationship, and he wants to be there for her. And then he kisses her on the forehead. I'm dead. I'm deceased. And he starts calling her Peach, and she's like, I never had a Mel. He calls her Mel and calls her Peach. And so she's like, I've never really had, like, a nickname. And so he's doing things. He also leaves his number with, like, with the assistant or whoever. But she tells us that he never called her. She never called him. So they left it there. So we go to December, and it is, like, present day. We go to Beat. And I didn't mention this is a dual POV, which we love. So we're going back and forth between Beat and Melody. So it is actually his 30th birthday. And he assumes that he's on his way to, like, a surprise party. He pretty much can figure that out. He tells us he's been getting blackmailed, and he's had to pay the guy off before, but he just got another message from the blackmailer. And he calls the guy, and he basically tells him, like, you know, I thought that the last time was it. I thought this was over. And the man tells him, well, the truth never goes away. He's in New York. That's where Beat lives now. And he's still on the phone with the blackmailer, who says he wants $800,000, which is double what he paid him last time. I want $800,000.
Swear.
Can I figure this out? So we don't know what he's being blackmailed for, but he tells us that whatever it is would ruin his mom's image. So again, Octavia is his mom. She's really like a New York socialite. We learn that they have, like, a foundation later that helps aspiring kids become, like, artists and be successful and everything. And he won't use the money from the foundation. He gets paid by the foundation, so he uses his personal money in the past, but, like, he doesn't have anything left. And the blackmailer was basically like, oh, you guys got it, like, whatever. And he won't take money out of the foundation. Pete is a really good guy. The blackmailer tells him he has until Christmas, and Beat goes into the party and, like, pretends that he's happy. So he goes to the party, and he basically tries to play it off, and we kind of get the idea that Beat is always, and he says it throughout this book, he's always kind of putting on a show for people. Mm-hmm. Like, as soon as anybody approaches him, whether they're, like, famous, not famous, big, important, whatever, he, like, basically slaps on this smile and just powers through. So he steps away, and his friend asks, who are you calling? Because everyone that he knows is there. And it, for some reason, makes him think of Melody. And he starts to think about a reality show that has been offered to him. And he's really just thinking of it because he doesn't know how much money he can make off of it. But that's pretty much the only way that he's probably going to be able to pay his blackmailer. And he finds the email from the producer. Her name is Danielle. And he sees that Melody is also mentioned in the email. This makes him think of how mean the media was to Melody and has been over the years, and he pretty much decides like he has to speak to her before he can agree to this. So we switch over to Melody's point of view, and it is December 8th. She is playing bocce ball. I meant to look this up because I have no idea what bocce ball is.
Yeah, I looked it up. I still am a little confused.
I mean, they throw a ball, you try to get the other ball away from something. Yeah. I have no idea, so I meant to look it up before, and I didn't. But she's playing bocce ball, and she has like a team from work. Basically, they drag her out because she's a hermit crab like me, and they are making her play. And we find out that she is a book restorationist, so she basically is in the basement of like bookstores or libraries or whatever, restoring books, and she still lives in New York also. Her team loses. Mel says she's the worst player on the team. And she's also telling us that her mom no longer lives in New York and they're not really close because her boss is kind of asking questions, and she's like, oh, I'll see my mom in February. We learn that her mom only comes once a year, and that's in February for Mel's birthday. So she goes to leave because Mel basically is like, you know, anytime people start drinking or she gets too close to people, it always seems to relate back to her mom. She really doesn't have her own identity. So she always leaves events before like the tables can turn to that. And she like steps outside and she's just like, huh, like I'm free and I can relate. Because I am horrible at like agreeing to do stuff and then being like, why did I agree to do that?
Yeah, same.
I do not want to go.
Same.
And so
we'll get, 3 hours before the event, and I'm like, do I have to?
I know, like, I don't know why I agree, so I'm so hesitant. I need to stop being that way all the time so that I can relate to Melody. So as she's, like, outside the bar, a woman is walking up to her. We find out that that's Danielle, the producer, but, like, Mel just starts walking off because she's used to being asked. Like, everyone wants to know, like, what broke up the band, blah, 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 all this stuff about her mom, who is Trina. So she starts walking, but Danielle starts telling her, like, Danielle is not backing down. She starts telling her about the show, and when she mentions Beat, that makes Mel stop. And Danielle's like, oh, that got your attention. Melody can't believe that Beat would agree to do something like this because they pretty much both have taken the stance that they're very private. They don't want to talk about like their moms. And I don't know if it's here or later. Oh yeah, it's right here. So 14 years ago when he and her met that first time, he asked her again, like, about the tabloids and how she felt. And after that time, and she told him, like, it hurts her feelings, basically, he told, like, the tabloids, because they adore him, but he said he would not speak to them anymore until they started to treat her better. And she says, like, it took time, but they eventually did, like, lighten up on her a whole bunch, because obviously they wanted to talk to Beat. And he stood up for her, which is, thank you. We need more men to do that. Danielle says she thinks it's weird that Melody is interested in Beat because from what he told her, they have no connection. Danielle says there's going to be a meeting on Monday with Beat if Melody wants to come, and she tells her that Beat won't agree to do this show if Mel doesn't. So Mel's wondering, like, if there's enough money that it will help her be financially independent from her mom. So she works, but, like, obviously she's a rich kid, and so she has money, but she really wants to just be on her own. We switch over to Beat, and it is now December 11th, which is the day of the meeting, and he sees Mel come in, and he's basically mesmerized by her, and he says that's why he never called her all those years ago. He starts thinking about taking her clothes off, and he says he won't go with her because he has certain tastes sexually, and he likes to keep that private. And I put, okay, Christian Grey. Because that's what he made me think of. Like, that might change my fan cast now that I'm thinking about it. But, or not, I can't wait to talk about the fan cast because I have an explanation. But anyways,
can't wait to hear.
Okay, Christian Grey is all I can say. I love those books. Yeah. Okay. So Danielle says that they have to make a decision today about the show because basically one of the Still Bird songs has gone viral, like on this book's version of TikTok or whatever. So all the young kids are loving it, and it's resparked interest in the band. And Beat is basically offered $1 million if the moms reunite on Christmas Eve at the holiday show in Rockefeller Center. He just needs Melody's participation. So initially, Melody like wasn't going to get any money. They basically just want her like, okay. And then Beat would do it and he would make $1 million. But he only gets that much money if they do the reunion show. I think he would get a little bit of money, but they never really say how much. But if they don't like agree to do the reunion, then he's not probably going to get enough to pay the blackmailer. We switch back over to Melody, and they have gone off, her and Beat have gone off to a lounge area, and they're eating beignets, which is also what Danielle, like, offered her as a bribe, because she loves beignets. And they're talking, or she's telling us just, like, how mesmerizing Beat is. She thinks of what being with him would be like, and she's pretty sure, like, he has to have a girlfriend. Beat apologizes to her for bringing her out there, because they're in Manhattan, Melody lives in Brooklyn. Of course, she's artsy-fartsy, like, of course she does. And he knows what she does for work and, like, asks, like, what book is she currently working on. She tells him she's restoring Judy Blume's Super Fudge first edition, and I love that. They share a brief, like, hand touch, and she instantly melts and tells him about how she plays bocce ball, and he asks her, like, are the games at night, and do you walk home alone? Which she says, yeah, I mean, like, it's in her neighborhood, basically. She says, yeah, basically, like, explains to him she does it because people start asking questions, which he understands. He asks her if she has a boyfriend to walk her home, and Melody says no. And then he starts calling her Peach and Mel and, you know, all those little cute nicknames again. So she asks him if he has a girlfriend, and he says no, which she's very surprised about. She says she'd invite him to watch her games, but anything that they do together will probably draw attention, and she thought that they both didn't want that, so she asked why did he even decide to do this show? Which he says he'd rather not get into the specifics about, so she pretty much already knows, like, it has to be about money, because that's the only reason that he would agree to do that, and he basically, like, kind of, like, closes his eyes and, like, sighs, that kind of thing, and that pretty much confirms it for her. He says he can't tell her the details, even if he wanted to, but he says it doesn't matter because he's not going to try to reunite the moms on live stream where he can't control how it affects her. So Danielle told them, like, obviously, like, the show would be on TV, but they're going to live stream them from, like, the day they agree up until the reunion. So everything they, like, I can't imagine. I would never agree to this. She's surprised that he has so much concern about her, like, because she feels very insignificant. She realizes that if he came this far, that he must really need the money for whatever reason, and she doesn't want to be the reason he can't get it. So she tells him that, you know, you'll never pull this off without me, and basically she's ready to give it a shot. So she touches his arm, and, like, she says she feels like she sees lust in his eyes. And they start talking about, like, their moms, and she tells them how she barely sees her mom. She only comes once a year. And she admits how every year her goal is to impress her mom, and every year she's wrong. Like, basically, Melody has never felt good enough for her mom. And I don't think her mom intentionally meant to be the way that, it's just the way that she is. And I think it's here, like she said, like, one year she even took guitar lessons, but then she was just so down on herself that she never even showed her mom that she could play the guitar because she was just so nervous and worried about impressing her. She says it's finally time to stop the once-a-year visits, and basically either her and her mom need to rectify their situation or it needs to just come to a complete stop, including the financial part, so she could use the money too. He calls her Peach and tells her he doesn't want to make her do this, and her heart stutters. We switch back over to Beat. It's now 2 weeks to Christmas Eve, and he doesn't like this situation. We find out Danielle was recording their meeting just in case they agreed so that they could use the footage. Beat says to Melody, Beat tells Danielle Melody has to have security at all times and that filming has to stop at night so that they can have downtime, which Danielle agrees to. Both of them still don't think it'll happen, so he says, Danielle, you're going to need to basically, like, you need to have a backup because they're pretty sure that they can't get their moms to agree to this. And so they stick around to basically record kind of like a promo for the show. He talks about the cameraman who he says he looks like Gerard Butler. He's like, can I get a different cameraman? Because he kind of like comes off grumpy or something. And both of them have like kind of noticed that the cameraman, whose name is Joseph, and Danielle seem like there's some tension there. Like they've had something going on before. They're talking about the names of the show, and Melody suggests Wreck the Halls. And that's what they decide on, obviously. And they basically plan that their first task is going to be to go to a gala on Friday, which is hosted by Octavia and I don't even remember what their foundation is called. That wasn't as important.
Oh, yeah. I don't...
Whatever their foundation is, that's what the gala's for. And basically they want to try to soften up Beat's mom first. But Melody says she doesn't have anything to wear, and Danielle says, oh, we can rectify that. We switch back over to Melody. She's in Manhattan. She's basically early for a meeting, and she texts Beat and is like, hey, where's a good coffee place? And he's like, oh, come to my gym. Okay. Like, that's not what I have.
Gym?
The gym? There's not like a Starbucks. So, of course, she gets to the gym. He's shirtless and sweaty and everything that a girl could want for. So... They go to the coffee place, and the girl, I think they said her name was Jessica, like, she is like, hubba, 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 hubba. Like, sir, can you put your clothes on so I can take your order? Because she's, like, stuttering and, like, stammering over the order, and he kisses, like, the back of Melody's hand, just like, okay. And he asks Melody after she gets her coffee, like, how is it? And she says it's good. It was made with lust. And he's confused. And she tells him, like, you just put Jessica through puberty all over again and you don't even realize it. He's like, I'm just a nice guy. Which he is a nice guy, but no, you're not just a nice guy, sweetheart. And she says, yes, you were nice to me at 16 too. Which he says, no, that was different. He asked her to do box jumping, which literally is like, you guys have seen the videos.
It is the worst thing.
When they jump up on the big boxes. And I would say she didn't come to the gym to work out. Like, she's not prepared. Mm-mm. But she tries it, and she doesn't make it. And, of course, all she can see is, like, his happy trail. Oh, we love the happy trail. Gosh. Okay. And he comforts her and is like, you know, like, it's okay. Like, it's not a big deal. We switch back over to Beat, and they are now together at the office or wherever. They're doing confessionals for the show, basically. He's watching Mel from backstage or whatever, and he just can't stop thinking about how good she looks. They're talking about the concert incident, which is like kind of like the last show that they did before they broke up, and that's when both of the moms were pregnant. We learned that Beat's mom is like more of the reserved, like calm, cool, collected one, and she was the lead singer, and that's Octavia again. And then Mel's mom is Trina, and she was like, she's the lyricist. She's wild. She's like the bad girl. You guys know. It's the typical tropes. So the main rumor for them breaking up is that there was a love triangle. And the interviewer asked about it, and Beat actually knows the truth, that there was a love triangle, and the third person is his blackmailer, who also happens to be his biological father. And is not who his mom is married to. So, Melody noticed that Beat has some hesitation after that question. And she basically tries to, like, distract, like, from that. But she's like, yeah, I mean, it could have been, like, anybody. Like, they're like, oh, it could have been Keanu Reeves. Which, okay. So, the interviewer mentions that the band did have a change in drummer when all this stuff was going on. And I was like, okay, is that the guy? Melody mentions that her dad, she also doesn't really talk to. He basically was a roadie, and he is... You know, he's not important. He doesn't come up again in this book. Beat thinks about how much he loves being around Mel and how he missed her, and basically he wants to make out with her. So we learned that basically for Stillbirds, after they had that blow up at that concert, they took time off. They tried to come back together, but that was for a tour, and it basically just all went downhill from there. Apparently, like, they were in Arizona, and there was a scorpion planted somewhere, and they assumed that Trina did it, and the scorpion was, like, attacking Octavia. I don't know. And then Octavia, like, slammed her guitar, and there was a fire. Chaos. It was chaotic. We go back over to Melody, and it is now December 15th. She is getting a makeover for the gala tonight, and she's being lectured because... This is so funny because this is so me. She's wearing a bra that's 2 sizes too big. And the stylist, her name is Lola, she's like, most people wear bras that are 2 sizes too small, like, to make their boobs look better. And Melody's like, well, it's comfortable. And she's like, Lola tells her, yeah, it's like a turtleneck. I'm cracking up. So Lola literally, like, just strips her down. And she is panicking, like, what are you doing to me? And she's talking about my boobies. So Lola puts her in a thong and a strapless bra, and she immediately wants to cover up. And I feel that because I would be like, please give me some clothes. Lola tells her how to turn off the mic they basically are wearing mics like from here on out. And so basically she's like, if you ever want to turn it off and you need some privacy, you basically can squeeze this button and it'll turn it off. So she puts her in a dress, and Melody's like, oh, this is comfortable. And Lola's like, can you please stop using the C word around me? So she zipped it up, and then it's like skin tight, and Melody's like, no. And Lola's like, yes. And we find out that they are now live, and Mel starts panicking. Danielle says they've been playing their confessionals, and they've gotten tons of interest since just starting the show, especially with Mel. Like, people love her, which Mel's shocked because obviously in the past the media has been so hard and mean to her, so she's surprised that they would like her. They ask Mel about Beat, and she starts to say how kind he is and beautiful, and then she sees Beat in a tux, and of course he is gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
She tries to play off the makeover, and he's checking her out, and then he hugs her and calls her Peach and says she smells like gingerbread. She asks about his mom, and Beat tells her that his mom has already heard about the show from her manager, and she agreed to be on camera tonight, but she was surprised that he agreed to do this show like everyone else. His mom told him that there have been many requests for a reunion, and she wants to take tonight as an opportunity to shut them down. Beat asks about Melody's confessional, and so she asks about him, so they're just kind of asking how it went. She tells him about how she takes herself on self-dates, which I think is so, like, it's so sad, lonerish, but also I love every bit of it. Like, that is so important. Date yourself. Date yourself, ladies. And he asked her, do you ever go on real dates? And she says she was in a relationship for 4 months, and he says he's never been in a relationship, which is super hard for us to believe. She asks him why, and he says he just likes being single. And I'm like, oh, I would feel so friend-zoned. We switch back to Beat. He's basically noticing his growing attraction for Melody, which is poorly timed due to the cameras, because obviously they're going to pick up every bit of that. His blackmailer has been calling him nonstop, and his mom, and he tells us about the foundation, which I've already said, but basically it helps kids with talent, basically go to Juilliard and be successful. They're getting in the car to head over to the gala, and basically someone like runs up to them and is like, I'm watching you guys live on Instagram, and they're shocked because they didn't expect it to like be this fast or have this much interest. Beat hurry up and gets the door closed, locked, and they pull off, and he asks Danielle like, where is the security? And she says they're meeting at the event, but she didn't think like they would need them yet. She tells them the views are already up. They were in the thousands, but they're already up from there. Beat starts getting messages from his friends who are also watching the show, and someone sends him a video of Melody's confessional where she basically was like, he's nice, he's handsome, he's gorgeous, whatever she said. And they're like, she's got it bad for you. And he had been holding Melody's hand in the car, but he lets her hand go. And he thinks about how Melody might not like his sexual interest, which I was like, okay, Christian Grey again. And when they get to the event, he goes to help her out of the car, but she pulls away, which he's pretty sure is because he stopped holding her hand in the car. We switch back over to Melody, and they're basically being hounded by cameras and fans as soon as they arrive. This part is so goofy. So there's like artificial snow.
Oh my gosh, I love this part.
She looks up, and it gets directly in her eyeball. And she's like, does artificial snow melt? And everyone's like laughing, but she realizes that they are laughing with her, not at her, because she's so used to being like the butt of the joke. And we also realize, like, Beat forgot to tell her it's a masquerade party, so they get some masks like right when they enter. She notices Beat's looking at her breasts, and she's like, okay, she likes it. She's getting turned on. He tells her about the wish ceremony at this event, which is basically when they pick a wish out of this thing. Every guest can put a wish in there, but he's like, basically he's only allowed to pick the wish that asks his mom to sing, and then she'll act like she doesn't want to sing and be like heckled because she loves attention, and then she sings anyways. And Melody asks him like, well, like, doesn't that bother you? And he's like, no, like, he likes that, like, his mom likes attention, like, he's like, that's just what she likes. He's like, everybody has a vice. And so she, of course, asks him, what's his vice? And he says, my vice is not telling people my vice.
So Melody asks, well, how bad could it be? And he says, it's not bad, it's just private. Melody says hers is not calling her landlord because she wants to be his favorite. And Beat says, that's not a vice, that's just Melody. Melody says, I'm not a vice. And he says, you could be. And I was like, ah! Danielle grabs her and tells her that she needs to turn her mic off. She just wants to tell her that the viewers are growing and she can't control what they'll like. She's like, hashtag Melody is a beat simp. It's trending.
I'm like, how freaking embarrassing.
So embarrassing. So embarrassing. Oh my gosh. Hashtag Melody is a beat simp. And of course, like, Melody's like appalled, like, oh my god. She's also trending for the drive-by. Oh yeah, that's what she said. When she got out of the car and the snow got her eye and she was like, does it melt? And she was in like a drive-by snowing. So Danielle tells her drive-by snowing is also trending along with eye patch queen. I love it. So right now, really, the main interest for the show is her crush on Beat, and it's not really like focusing on the moms. So Danielle just wants to tell her that off camera because she does like her and she doesn't want her. She basically says, I don't think that you realize what's happening. Like, it's Melody's very like naive and honest about like her like talking, but she doesn't realize how it's coming across. Melody assumes that that's why Beat pulled away from her and like kind of put his wall up, and she basically assumes that means he doesn't feel the same way towards her. So she heads in and she bumps into this blonde man who seems to recognize her and offers to help walk her in. And I love Beat. Beat comes up to her and is like, oh, are you ditching me for this guy? And we find out his name is Rick. He's just like some guy that Beat knows. And Beat tells Rick, like, thanks for finding my date. Do you need help finding yours? I'm gagged. He ate that little bit. Mel tells him, I'm not your date. It's fine. And Beat says, since when? And asks what Danielle said to her. And Melody just blows it off, but he can tell that she's lying. So basically, Mel has like tells when she's lying. She like digs her ankle into her other foot or like stuff like that. And he tells her like, I can tell you're lying. He tells her that they need to talk and it's complicated. And obviously Mel doesn't want to like, she doesn't want things to be complicated. She doesn't want to do that. So Beat pulls her out on the dance floor because it's empty and she starts to panic. But he says like this way they can talk on camera but off camera. And they turn off their mics. And she's like, will Danielle like this? And Beat's like, I don't care. Yes, I agree. She tells us he smells like sage and black licorice, which I don't know if I like those. I don't know. I don't know. But maybe I need to smell them together. So Melody tells him the truth. She says she doesn't date, and when they first met, she was having a really hard time, and he treated her like a real person, and that her attraction to him isn't his fault or his responsibility. And so he whispers to her that he's grateful how she feels, but that they were raised to keep things private and quiet, and he's taken it too far. And he says basically like he keeps his sex life separate from everything. But before they can really finish this conversation, Octavia is brought in and there are trumpets that go off and she is like sitting on a throne being carried by men dressed as swans.
Like, how dramatic.
She is a queen. Queen. We switch back to Beat. He is thinking like he can barely contain himself. And okay, so Beat's kink is denial, basically. And so like he's not a sub, but he like doesn't like to be allowed to have like pleasure. Well, he enjoys it, but I don't know how to really explain this to people, but you're kind of getting the idea of what I'm saying. So he basically wants to withhold pleasure or have pleasure like withheld from him, and that is pleasurable to him, if that makes sense. And he's basically thinking like he wonders if Melody would be okay, but he doesn't really want to go there with her because he has like other secrets that he's keeping from her, which is basically about the blackmailer. He notices that his mom has noticed him holding Mel because he's still holding on to her, and she pretty much can tell like who she is. Mel asks where his dad is, and his name is Rudy, and he's married. It's Rudy, right? Yes, and that's who's married to his mom, so we know it's not his real... Everybody else thinks that's his dad, but that's really not his real dad. But he has been there his entire life. And he basically says, oh, my dad comes in later. Like, he doesn't like the fanfare. He lets my mom have all that, and he'll sneak in later. Beat gets kind of emotional thinking about, like, his feelings, and then, of course, his blackmailer calls. Then one of the past winners from like his mom's institute comes up and just starts talking to them, and she tells them they should go on a double date. And Beat's like, "Oh, we're just friends." Ouch. Mel says, "Could you imagine if oh, was that Mel? Somebody, I think it is Mel. Mel says, "Could you imagine if like they actually got together, which is like their names are intended for them to be together?"
Mm-hmm.
And Beat says, "A wedding would be one way to get a reunion." Okay. So a worker comes up to get Beat because he basically like tells him that Octavia has moved up the wish ceremony and he wants Mel to come with him. So he grabs her and pulls one out. Like the first one he pulls is like, "Oh, please sing us a song, Octavia." So he's like, perfect. And Joseph, the cameraman, tells them that they need to have their mics back on because he's sick of Danielle yelling in his ear. Mel's super nervous and he tells her that like they start talking about her bocce game and he's like he's gonna come to one of her games and he asks like what's your team color because he'll do body paint and of course it's pink. So on the way up to like the microphone on the stage, he's like, "Hey, there's gonna be a spotlight. It's gonna make a popping sound." Well, it does, and it knocks Melody on her butt. I would have went home. I would not have gone up here with him. I'm embarrassed. So she literally jumped back and like falls, and before he can even like he opens the wish, they get up there, he opens the wish and he's like, "This year's wish," and someone goes, "A Stillbirds reunion." So like he can't even get it out because that's what the crowd wants. We switch back over to Melody, and the crowd is basically chanting now, like, "Reunite." And she looks at his mom, who looks calm, which is the opposite of how she knows her mom would react. Octavia basically says, like, "Read the actual card, Beat." And Melody can tell that his mom is going to want to, like, basically move past this, but she doesn't want to let it happen. So she walks up to Octavia and removes her mask. And Octavia basically says, like, "You're crashing the party, dear," like mother, like daughter. And Melody says hi and says, "I'm a big fan of yours. And can they talk privately?" And then Melody lies and says that Trina actually is the one who wants to reunite the band, which is her mom. And she tells us, the readers, that Trina does not use, again, she's on a compound. She does not use the internet or watch TV, so she probably has no idea like that this show is even happening. So Octavia looks at Beat and Melody whispering and asks, like, "How much time have you guys spent together?" And she says she always wondered if they would click. And then she says that Melody's cute and she would hate to tell her no, but she's going to have to. And Beat says, "Well, then don't," and grabs Mel, which catches his mom's attention. And Octavia's basically like, "Fine, I'll hear you out." So they go to have like a talk. And I put, Octavia, I love her. I like the moms in this book.
Yeah, so do I.
So Octavia's like, "You guys hijacked my event," and asked Beat, like, "Why are you squeezing Mel to death?" Because he has not let go of her. Like, he wants to protect her at all costs, from his mom, from the fans, from everybody. And as they're meeting, Rudy walks in, and he's not upset or surprised about the show and asks how Trina's doing. Octavia tells Mel to just call her, like, Octavia, not Mrs. Dawkins or whatever, since her son is trying to stuff her in his pocket. And Beat's dad is like, "Oh, are you dating?" And he laughs. And Mel says no before Beat can even answer. And Mel tells them, like, there are thousands watching. And Danielle's like, "Millions." Octavia says that Stevie Nicks, like, she was basically talking about when they were pregnant. She's like, Stevie Nicks blessed their pregnant bellies. And then Trina had walked around, like, waving sage and said that the kids would always be connected. So she was like, I don't know if that was a curse or a promise. And Octavia basically tells him, like, "Look, if you can get Trina to New York, she'll do one song with them, but she's not having, like, a mushy reunion with them." We switch back over to Beat, and he's just feeling super protective over Mel. There's fans all down the street. There's signs saying, "Melody, will you marry me? Can you play with my bocce balls?" And there are people wearing eye patches. They've been at this event for 2 hours. Like, it's taken over the world. "Can you play with my bocce balls?" Mel doesn't want to know what the viewer count is anymore, but Beat does. And tomorrow they're supposed to fly to New Hampshire to find Trina's compound, which nobody knows where it actually is. And Danielle's, like, just super worried about tonight with the craziness. And her, like, basically everyone agrees Melody can't go to her home because she lives, like, on the ground level of, a brownstone or something, and it faces the street. Like, basically people would be climbing in her window. So Beat says that, basically she can come to his house, and I was like, yes, forced proximity. I love it. So Danielle's like, "You could go to a hotel," and Beat says no, she can stay with me. And Mel's like, no, I want to go to a hotel. And he asks why. And she says that she doesn't want it to be weird for them. I also took this moment to say I listened to the audiobook. The narrator of this, I don't love him. He sounds like the narrator from A Christmas Story. Like, he sounds like a dad. I don't know. Not like a daddy.
Yeah, it wasn't
like
my favorite.
He was not my favorite narrator. I powered through, but no. So anyways, they get in the car and they like literally just like barely make it because they're getting hounded by fans, and Beat's like, you're staying with me. And all he can think about is how he wants Mel to edge him, basically. So there's that. And he doesn't want to act on his like thoughts though, so he knows that he basically tells everybody when they get to the, like, he lives in a high rise or something, and he knows his doorman's going to be pissed, but he basically is like, I can bribe him with chocolate. And so he asked the cameraman, Joseph, like, hey, or he asked, like, does anyone have chocolate? And Joseph says he does. And Danielle says, some things never change. And okay, I don't know what that was. But Danielle's like, some things never change. And Joseph basically is like telling her, he tells her something, and Danielle is like, that's just one more way that we're incompatible. And I put like the eye, like looking emojis, because like we know there's something going on there. So of course Mel goes to get out of the car when they get there and freaking trips. And so B has to catch her, and then he bribes the doorman with a Baby Ruth. And he literally is like, ooh, chocolate. Ooh, squirrel, squirrel, squirrel. Like, I don't know how good of a doorman you are.
Right.
That's way too easy. So basically, they make it upstairs into the apartment. Mel changes to like just like this large t-shirt and takes her bra off, which B immediately notices. And she asks about his apartment, and basically he tells us that when he used to live in LA, his parents owned this apartment. So the reason he knows like how to bribe the doorman is because he used to come there and like bribe him not to tell his parents like where he was. He starts to tell Mel how when he was a kid, his dad had sent him to a camp. And he's like, oh, it's great. And she can tell something's off. And basically we find out he was bullied for his mom, basically. And he would go like every year. And that's basically what started this whole denial, like kink for him. Mm-hmm. Is like, he doesn't feel like he deserves good things. He feels like he's been given so many good things, like by his mom being a celebrity and all the money and stuff, that like he does not deserve anything else. So like he punishes himself on purpose. He tells Mel, like, you know, they should go to bed, and she, like, goes off, and he drinks out of her glass, like, where her lips were, just so, like, he could feel like he was touching her, I guess. I don't know. So Mel goes to her room, and she starts thinking about the conversation they had, and she can hear, like, their rooms are next to each other, so she can hear, like, a muffled sound, and she knows that when they had just, like, kind of embraced, and she knows that she felt, like, B have an erection. She's, like, she basically is, like, he's next door masturbating, probably. And she feels like she's turned on herself, but she doesn't want to be doing that to the thought of Beat in his house. But every time she stops thinking about Beat, like, her need goes away. So she goes out in the hallway like, okay, I'm just gonna like listen, girl. Okay. And of course he comes out, he's shirtless and like sweaty, like, we know what you were doing. We know what was going on in there. And he like pushes her up against the wall and asks, like, does she want him to stop? And she says yes because she'll embarrass herself. And he's like, no, he likes it. He says, I like things a little fucked up. And he basically like asks for her permission to touch her and calls her Peach. And she agrees. So they start interacting, but he still hasn't told Mel like about his full denial kink or anything. Like, they're having this little moment in the hallway, and Melly says, like, oh my gosh, he has, like, a completely different, like, bedroom vocabulary, and I was like, yes, I love that. Like, because Beat's basically like a golden retriever, but he knows when to not be a golden retriever. And that is what is important, gentlemen. Okay, so, like, he basically kind of gets Mel off, and, like, she wants to return the favor, but, again, he has this denial kink, so he, like, is like, he tells her, like, don't let me finish. And she's like, okay, but she's confused. And they talk like they're actually gonna have sex, but then he's basically like, I'm sorry, I have to go, kind of thing, and leaves. And like, anybody would feel super rejected. So then he comes back after she goes to her room and is like, oh, like, Mel, let me talk, let me explain. And she's like, it's fine. And she just goes to bed. So we switch over to Beat, and it is now the 16th. It's the next day. It's the morning that they're going to find Trina. And he says that he basically tells us, like, he never stays for the end of sex with partners. And I don't know if he's already said it or it's when he tells Mel, but he doesn't even, like, just casually sleep with people. He basically goes to, like, BDSM clubs, and he's like, it's a transaction. And he'll tell us that later. But he never, he has sex with women, like, it's great, it's wonderful, but, like, he won't allow himself, like, that pleasure until, like, he's alone. And, like, he doesn't, like, there's no cuddling. The cuddling is great. Why would you know? What's wrong with you? I'm not king shaming. I'm so sorry. And he says basically the reason he ran away from her last night is because he basically almost did, and he was like, he doesn't want to do that. Like, he couldn't hold himself back. He wants to talk now before the cameras are on, and he basically doesn't want to, like, lose it on camera. But of course, like, someone's knocking at the door, and I'm like, oh, it's Danielle. And no, it is actually his blackmailer / bio dad at the door. He says, like, what are you doing here? How did you get up here? And he's like, oh, well, I mean, I saw it on the live stream, and then I saw you bribe the doorman on the live, like, he saw everything. So that's how he was able to get up there. I'm like, dang, they're going to have to fire the security guard. He's a nice old man. And he's like, you're not answering your phone. And Beat basically is like, I have time, whatever, like, get out of here, which he does. So then Danielle and Joseph get off the elevator, and it looks like Joseph's, like, trying to kiss Danielle. She's, like, trying to fight it off. So there's that. And Melody comes out when he gets back in, so they didn't get time to talk, because she comes out, and you can tell she's nervous because she's like, I'm nervous to see my mom. She's like, I don't know if, like, she's in a cult. Like, is this the Manson cult? Like, she has no idea what's going on there. She's never been there. And Danielle tells them, like, they got a private plane because they're not going to be able to fly commercial with all of this fanfare. So we switch back over to Melody. She's on the plane. Either they're on the plane or on the way there. Like, she's replaying the events from last night. And she asked Danielle to distract her. And Danielle basically asks about, like, her and B. And so she does tell Danielle that they made out, basically. And she says that Beat pulled away, which Danielle is surprised by. Danielle is like, okay, fine. So she tells her about what's going on with her and Joseph. And she says basically her and Joseph kind of, like, their careers, like, they grew up together in this career field, basically. And so they were on, like, some job assignment together, and they end up sleeping together. And she says he's very controlling, but she doesn't like that outside of the bedroom. So that's why they don't work out. And Melody gets up they are on the plane. So Melody gets up and goes to the bathroom. And on the way back, of course, like, there's some turbulence, and she falls right in Beat's lap. And he tells her, like, he had, like, papers all over his lap, and she's like, oh, like, what are you doing? And he's basically like, you should sit here until the turbulence stops or whatever. And he's like, I'm trying to select the winner, because that's his job. He picks the winner for the scholarship from his mom's thing. Foundation, yes. And Melody can really tell, like, this is his actual passion. Like, he does really enjoy his job. So B goes ahead and tells Mel, like, about his whole denial kink, and, like, that's, and about, like, the guilt of basically always having everything. And he says, like, he first started when he was 16, and he asked a girl to do it, and she did, but then, like, she never wanted to talk to him again. I find that hard to believe. I don't... There are weirder things out here, ladies. I don't know. But anyways, he says, like, she didn't want to see him again, and then he found another girl, and she also, like, didn't want... It kept happening, and so he said that's why he keeps it private. And so he says now, like, it's not really about the guilt so much. He does actually get enjoyment out of it, and he's essentially, like, he's never been able to, like, fully, like, receive pleasure in sex, like, if he doesn't do it this way. But he does tell Melody, like, ever since he saw her, which he says this like it ain't been a week, but ever since he saw her, he has not gone to any of the clubs that he normally goes to, and he just, like, he doesn't even want it to. She tells him, like, this doesn't run her away. She says her feelings were hurt, but that's because she didn't understand, and now she does. And she wants him to try again. So, like, she's sitting on his lap, so she kind of gives him, like, a little lap dance. And he wants her to, like, I don't know, it seems like a dom sub situation kind of, but, like, Mel's not really a dom, but whatever. He wants her to, like, deny him pleasure, and they start doing that, but of course the plane starts to land, so that's short-lived. So we switch back over to Beat, and we are at the compound. So they pull up, and it's like a 3-story Victorian home, just pretty simple. He notices there's a sign on the door that says the Free Loving Adventure Club, but there's no sign of like anybody being home. And they're like, honk the horn, or Mel says honk the horn, and they ask about cars, and Melly's like, no, they bike everywhere. And so the driver like is from there, and he says that the police get caught out there a lot, and the locals don't like them. Trina basically walks around town in angel wings and combat boots, and he says that her and her friends don't have good hygiene. I can picture this so well. So, of course, they hear a siren, so the police are on their way. And they look, and they, like, off to the side or whatever, there's, like, 7 people outside, including Trina. They're outside playing the drums, and it's, like, 35 degrees outside. I mean, it's December in New Hampshire. Like, I'm sure it's cold. Joseph tells Danielle, like, to stay back, and she's like... And then Beat says, like, Mel, can you please stay back? And Danielle says, you notice how he says please? So Trina is standing, like, around this circle or whatever. She's wearing black angel wings, and not, like, the cute feather ones. They're, like, giant, humongous, like, 6-foot wings. She has on, like, a corset and Doc Martens. And the police are like, put the drums down. And then 3 men in Santa Claus costumes come out, and they're, like, basically... Even though she's by her house, she's on these guys' property or whatever. And they're supposed to be having some, like, Christmas thing, and they're the Santas. So Trina, like, looks, and she recognizes Mel and Beat, and she's pissed. And basically, Trina and the Santas get into a little scuffle. So the Santa goes for Trina. Trina throws a drum at him. And one of the Santas try to push Trina. And then Mel gets over there and kicks him in the balls, basically. And Trina and Mel get arrested.
Yep.
So, what a wonderful start to this. And Beat's like, take me instead. And they're like, you didn't do anything, sir. Like, we have to take them. And Mel's like, it's fine. Don't get arrested. Just get us out of here. So we switch back over to Mel. They're getting booked. Of course, Trina comes in like, I'm back, bitches. Like, that's her vibe. And the officer bringing... It's so funny because the officer bringing them in has a freaking stillbirds tattoo. Because Trina's like...
I thought it was hilarious.
Trina's like, you know you're happy to see me. He's like, be quiet. And she's like, well, your tattoo's showing. And he goes, I'm Team Octavia. So Trina says... Trina turns to Mel and is like, oh, she's Team Octavia too. And Mel says, I've only met her once. But the officer has been watching the show. And he says, like, it seems like Octavia liked her, and he calls her the Magnificent Mel. So that's her new name, is the Magnificent Mel. So we find out that the Bells Bondsman is actually closed for the day for a wedding, so they might not get out of there anytime soon. So they decide to have a little heart-to-heart, and Trina asks Mel if her and Beat are dating, and the officer says that Beat only has eyes for Mel. The cop mentions the reunion, and Trina's like, what reunion? Like, obviously she doesn't watch TV, so she's shocked. Yeah, and so Mel tells her mom about the show, and Trina, like, is laughing maniacally. Like, not ha-ha. Not funny ha-ha. Trina immediately says, no, like, I'm not ever doing that. And she's like, I'd rather burn in hell or something like that than get on the stage with Octavia. And Trina also says that the fans hate her and they love Octavia. And Trina acts like she doesn't care, but I'm pretty sure that she does. Trina says that nothing that she can say to her will make her do it, and that Octavia was the one who wanted to break them up in the first place. And she does admit that it was a love triangle, because she's like, we agreed when we started this band, like, that nothing stupid like that would come between us, and then a freaking man came between them. Like, the one thing they agreed wouldn't happen. Trina tells Mel that she'll never get used to the thought that someone would be there for... Oh, no, that's not what she says. Trina tells Mel that she basically needs to get used to the fact that people basically won't be there for her. And Mel says that basically she's already learned that dealing with her mom. Which, that shocks Trina. Because I don't think that Trina realizes... Well, she does, because later she says it, but it's like, it's not intentional the way that Trina is to Mel. So Trina's basically like, what do you mean by that? And Mel's like, nothing. But she's like, no, tell me. And so Mel tells her, like, I've had to teach myself, like, how to be okay and be okay with people not being there for me and all these things. And Trina says that I thought I was the lyricist because, like, basically the way that Mel says it is, like, poetic. And then Trina apologizes for basically always feeling like she has to be the bad girl, which I get that. Like, it's like people expect something from you, and you're like, why fight it? Like, I'll just do it. So while they're talking, Beat comes over the speaker and says they've been released and no charges were filed. And he is, like, obsessively checking Mel over, like, those handcuffs better not have left marks on you. And Trina's like, can somebody let me out? Trina says that, like, because Beat basically kind of gives, like, Trina the cold shoulder, and she's like, oh, your mom must have poisoned you against me. And he says, no, that's not her style. I can make my own judgments. And Mel's like, please, like, I just cannot take you two arguing. So Trina tells them, like, anytime she goes to jail, they have a party at the house, so they are more than welcome to come and spend the night. And the officer, his name is Melvin, he's like, oh, can I come? And she's like, fuck off, Melvin.
Which I thought was hilarious.
You're going to take me to jail and then come to my party? What? No. And also, there's, like, a female officer there, too. And, like, while they were having this heart-to-heart, they were like, we're going to go in the break room and watch the live stream. So they were planning to stay at Trina's, but of course, there's only one room. So we got the one bed trope.
Not just one bed, a
twin-size bed. So we switched to Beat, and I literally put, it's a twin bed with the laughing emoji. So Beat's like, I'll just sleep, like, up against the wall, like, sitting up. And Mel's like, no, like, we'll just go back to back or, like, feet to head or something in a twin. I'm not sleeping in a twin bed with anybody. I'm just gonna tell you right now.
Right.
I'm not sleeping in there with my husband is. I'm not comfortable. I don't even care who's in the bed. I don't want to sleep alone in a twin bed.
Right.
What am I gonna do with this? Why do you even have? And the room is also in the attic, by the way.
And the bed isn't even on. It's on the floor.
Yeah, it's the
not
mattress.
even.
There's no frame.
Oh.
Like, who else has been in this bed? I would have been like, no. I'll pass.
Do you have a couple blankets and all?
Literally, some pillows. Gosh. So they go down to the party. Trina's making out with this, like, young guy and comes over to introduce him. His name's Buck. He doesn't have a shirt on, and he's basically the same age as Mel. And he, like, hugs her. She's like, I don't need fatherly hugs from someone that's my age. Buck says that Trina sings all the time, and they ask her to sing, and Mel's like, yeah, you should sing a Still Bird song, which, of course, she doesn't want to. And she basically, like, Trina's like, we don't do that here. And Mel's like, oh, I thought there weren't any rules. Basically, like, free love and all that. So Mel's like, forget it. So she grabs a freaking guitar. And she's going to sing. She sings, like, some powerhouse song or whatever. And she calls Beat her best friend and is like, are you going to sing it with me? And Beat cannot sing. But he's like, sure. And so they rock out, basically. And at the end of it, she basically does a mic drop, like, on her mom. And she, like, tells her mom, like, we're leaving in the morning and you don't need to come see me in February, because she's basically, like, had it with her. And her mom is like, fine, but at that point, Mel's already walked off. Like, she didn't even hear her say anything. She didn't wait for her response. So essentially, they go up to this attic, and before they can even, like, get in the room, they're, like, on top of each other. Like, the tension, the show they put on, like, that was it. So they do finally have sex this time, and Beat still is able to, like, do his whole denial kink and everything, but he's really having a hard time with it, because this is the first time he's been, like, in a non-transactional relationship with someone. So the next morning, they're getting ready to go to the airport, and something's off, and we'll go back to Mel's POV. And something's off. She's just like, she doesn't know, like, what it is. So she, like, got up and left him early, and she's already out in the car. So Danielle asks her if she's okay, and she says yes. She's, like, lies and says, oh, like, Beat was still asleep. And she's like, oh, we just went back down to the party last night, which we know they didn't. And Beat gets in the car and asks, like, what's wrong? Did I hurt you? And she says no. But she tells him, basically, she didn't expect to feel lonely, even though he did warn her. And he didn't leave, but, like, she still felt lonely afterwards, which I can get. She says maybe she needs, like, his full trust or nothing. And she's like, that's not your fault. Like, it's me. Like, that's just what I need, and you don't have to be willing to give that to me, which is very mature. Mel says, like, she knows her mom is not going to perform, and Beat's basically like, okay, so then what do we do? And Danielle says that she has a trick up her sleeve, but they'll have to learn about it later. She also lets them know, like, because they have so much following now, that they're going to need to get a second cameraman, and that they're going to separate Beat and Melody for a few days. And Joseph is like, oh, well, whoever it is won't be as good as me. And Danielle asks, like, do you need your ego stroked? And Joseph says that he's been doing most of the stroking. Okay. Okay. So Danielle's like, Danielle's like, we're live because you're talking. And Joseph's like, yeah, that's what you get for like saying what you said. And Danielle's like, you know what? I'm glad we're getting a second cameraman. I'm going with him. And Joseph's like, absolutely the fuck not. So they're going to split up for 2 days. Danielle's going to go with Mel. And then Joseph's going to go with him, obviously. And then whoever the new cameraman will go with Beat. But Beat was like expecting that Mel was going to come stay at his place when they get back. But she wants to go home or like to a hotel at least. Danielle tells them they're also going to be on the Today Show when they get back. Melody says, like, I have a bocce game tomorrow. And Beat's like, is that going to be safe? And Mel says, like, please just stop worrying about you. Which is where we get this line, like, do you think I can just turn it off and carve you out of my chest? I can't. It's always I love you.
Live on camera.
Live on camera. Oh my gosh. And so they really just don't speak anymore. They don't talk on the plane. And they just get back to New York. But when they land, it's absolute chaos. Danielle tells Mel, like, they broke the internet last night with their performance. And their ship name is Bellady. Octavia's been calling Beat. And he also has a Christmas party tomorrow with friends at the same time as Mel's game. So they go to separate once they're, like, into their cars. And she tells him that he holds himself back because of their upbringing and because of what happened with the kids at camp. And she tells him, like, what he likes sexually is beautiful, but only if he's doing it for the right reasons, which is, like, for pleasure, not for the guilt that he has. She tells him that they are meant to be best friends and they can remain that way, but she doesn't want to go back to never seeing him again. We switch back to Beat, and he goes to see his mom. He's been watching Mel's live stream since they're separated now, and he is basically, like, chugging a drink, and Octavia asks him if he's trying to forget Trina. And he tells her that or he asks his mom, like, has she been watching? And she demands to know what happened in the attic last night with Mel. He's shocked and says, like, everyone's just speculating. And she agrees, and she's like, she admits, like, she's a Melody head. And even though Mel lied and said that Trina knew about it, which, like, we don't care, but she really likes Melody. B tries to change the subject to, like, the applicants, and his mom wants to know, like, when's Mel going to come over for dinner? And he asks not to talk about her on camera, and she tells him that he doesn't realize how much he's been saying on camera. I mean, you just said that you had to carve her out of your chest. Like, right. You said I love you without saying I love you. She tells him she doesn't blame him for his feelings. Like, again, she really likes Melody. And B asks her if she wants him to admit to her his feelings. And she says yes. So he says, like, he does like her, and he doesn't think that she'll be coming over anytime soon for dinner, at least not as a date, but maybe as a friend. And Octavia says, blink twice if there was nudity last night. I could imagine having, like, rock star parents.
I was about to say, like, you have a former rock star mother, like, it has to come with the territory.
It has to be fun. Like, I love it. I love it. So B asks his mom, like, would you still do the reunion? And she says, well, Trina said no, so it's kind of a moot point. Octavia says, or ask him basically, like, are you going to Mel's game? And he says no, he doesn't think that she would want him there. And Octavia says, oh, Mel's not hiding her feelings either. And she asks him, like, do you love her? And he says yes. And so Octavia basically tells him, like, uncomplicated, like, make it happen. We're still in Beat's POV, and it's December 18th, and he's at the party. And his friend basically comes up to him. His name is... What is his name? Van? Something like that. I wrote it down later. I didn't think it would be important, but then he stuck around for a bit. But his friend's basically like, he can tell...
Vince? I think it's Vince.
I think it is Vince. I think I wrote it down at some point. But he's basically like, we can tell that you've been keeping things from us. Like... They can see how open he is on the camera, and, like, they recognize that, like, that's not the Beat that they know. And Beat, like, basically says, yeah, like, he does. Because he can't, like, Mel gets him. She's in the exact same situation he is and has been her whole life. Well, kind of, things were easier for him, but she gets the whole, like, not want to talk about their mom's thing. So he goes off to the bathroom, which is where he has been going for the last couple of days to watch Mel, and he can tell there's a crowd, and... As a friend, he thinks to himself, like, I need to be there. And he's like, maybe I can even, like, fully give myself over to her. He goes to leave and he comes out and everybody's watching him and Mel on the live stream. Awkward. And someone cries and says, like, he's going to her. He loves her. That's me. And his friends are like, do you want us to come? Like, do you need support? And he's like, normally he would say no, but he's like, you know what? Yeah, like, let people be. So we go to Mel, and she's at the bocce table. Like, it's her time for her shot. And she's just thinking how she wishes Beat was there. And she has not been watching the stream, even though he has. And she's trying to hype herself up when Beat comes in. So him and two of his friends are shirtless with pink letters that spell out Mel. And, of course, he's the M. I'm screaming. And they hug, and she thanks him for not giving her the full days away from him. Vance, you're right. So Vance comes up and introduces himself and says, like, he wants to marry her, which Beat is like, absolutely not. And she looks, and, like, the L for Mel is over there, like, making out with her boss. So Beat is, like, kind of closing in, and Mel's like, we're friends. So they talk strategy, and she ends up throwing the winning shot. So, of course, she's excited, and she jumps, like, up on Beat, like, her legs are wrapped around him. And she has on, he's like, oh, you have these stockings on, and she's like, oh, they're not stockings. What did she say? They're not stocking, they're tight. Or no, he says you have these tights on, and she's like, oh no, these aren't tights, these are stockings. He's like, what's the difference? And she's like, oh well, they only come up to my upper thigh and they cut off, which obviously he immediately visualized, and he was unwell. So they stay at the bar for a little while, and Vance is like, let's have a snowball fight, which Mel has no clothes on. Why did she agree to this? That's all I could think of. I hate the snow and the cold.
Yeah.
I would never agree to this. We go to Beat, and they are walking over to whatever Prospect Park, I think. And she is asking him, like, what he's been doing. And he tells her that his mom loves her. He starts asking Mel, like, if she's ever thought about having kids one day. And she says yes. She didn't used to, like, want to. But now she doesn't want to close herself off from opportunity. And he realizes that he just needs to be open and stop punishing himself. And she tells him, like, she thinks he'd be a good dad. Aww. She says that he has dad energy, and he says he thought he had daddy energy. And she's like, oh, you have that too. Ah! So her friends come along, and so do his, and like they're playing, they call it preppies versus nerds. So she says that basically if her side wins, that he has to wear a shirt that says serious daddy energy, and that if he wins, she'll wear a shirt that says serious jock energy to dinner with his mom. So they start like fighting, and like his team sucks. Mel's team is very strategic. Obviously they're the nerds. Like they have like piles of snowballs.
It gives me like Buddy the Elf.
Oh, yes.
Versus the kids.
Yes.
Like, it gives me that kind of vibe.
Yeah, they are, like, they're killing it. And she is Mel's pummeling him with snowballs. He does not want to throw a snowball at her. And Vance, like, throws one at her, like, really hard. And he's like, watch it. So she runs out of snowballs, and she tackles him. And he's just, like, overcome with emotion. And Mel can, like, literally see it on his face. And she tells him, like, you're so beautiful, like, letting all of that, like, emotion out to sea. And he tells her, like, he wants to tell her everything tonight. And they almost kiss, but Vance, like, comes up because the camera is on them. And he basically gets in front of the camera, and so do all of their friends. And Danielle's like, or no, not Danielle, her boss, her name is, like, Savalina or something, comes up and it's like, there are tons of people headed here. Like, they figured out where we're at, the fans, and they're coming. So Vance and Savalina swap their coats with Mel and Beat, and they run opposite directions to, like, lose everybody in the camera. And of course, like, they were in Mel's neighborhood, so they're going to her house. So we switch back over to Mel. They get to her apartment, and he can tell, like, that she sleeps on the couch. And he tells her, like, I haven't slept in a bed in years. He tells her he wants a lot more than friendship, and that she's the good part of him, and she gets him. And he wants her to have all of him, and he wants to have all of her. He wants her to sit on his lap, like, while they're having this conversation. She's like, no, you're not going to distract me. That was wise. And he tells her about the blackmail. He says it's been going on for 5 years, and his parents don't know, and the blackmailer just constantly wants more. And up until this year, he could afford it. She tells him, like, you have to tell your mom, but he doesn't want to because he feels like she's giving him the world and this one thing he can handle. And he also doesn't want his stepdad to find out because, like, he knows that it'll, like, he adores his mom and Beat, and he doesn't want to break his heart. So Mel doesn't, like, want to push him, and we also find out that, we find out later, but I'll just put it now. So basically, Rudy and Octavia were together before she got pregnant, and she kind of cheated, and that's why she got pregnant. So that's why he thinks like that he's the real dad. So Mel tells him like, well, this is a very good, or no, B asks like, is this enough? And she's like, it's a good first step. Like, she doesn't let him all the way off the hook, but she tries to give him some props for it. And she asks like, who is the blackmailer? And he doesn't want to tell that part. And I was like, well, then you're not giving, like, you didn't give everything. So like, I don't know why you're giving yourself a pat on the back. So she goes to get them drinks, and she comes back in, and he's smelling her shirt that was like on the couch. So she like makes him like lay down on the couch basically, and she lays with him. So we switch back over to B, and he is trying not to have sex with Mel, but she's pushing him this time. And she says she wants all of him, and to be honest, and he says he will, but I was like, he's not. You're not being honest. So he asks if he can touch her, and they do end up having sex. And so the first time they had sex, they talked about condoms. They had this whole conversation. This time they don't do that. Whatever. Okay. You know, do you? Whatever. So we switch back over to Mel, and it is December 19th, and they are in bed, and in her bed, and someone is banging at the door. She basically says like they had sex on the couch, they showered, and like they had round 2 in the bedroom. So she looks over at her phone, which is also going off, and Beat's like, no, like, you're not answering the phone. I'm having sex with you again before we start this day. Which he does. And in the middle of that, he tells her, like, I'm the only one that gets you like this, and there's no beat without melody. And I was like, oh my God, I'm dying. And he's like, he tells her, like, he's obsessed. I love it. Okay. He can't wait until Christmas because he can't wait for the like cameras and all this to be over, and he wants them to go like away and not have to worry about it for like a month. And she's like, "Beat, it's streaming in 40 countries. The world is watching." The doorbell is like still going off, and so Mel opens the door in her robe, and her hair's like she's clearly had sex. Beat is behind her. He's shirtless and has a bite mark, and the cameras are going, and Danielle goes like, "That's what you get." And Beat like slams the door in their face. And they just start laughing, and he says, you know, like, I'm kind of glad. Like, he wants, like, the world to know. And then, Melody admits, like, she's happy, too. And so Beat opens the door and says, that's right, I spent the night here, and it's exactly what you thought. And Danielle's like, okay, we're supposed to be on the Today Show, and they're late. So they scramble to get ready and leave. We switch back over to Beat, and he's like, he feels like proposing on the Today Show. And I was like, absolutely not. Like, please don't do that. Oh, my God, no. I'm glad that didn't happen. And so they go on stage, and he realizes there's 3 chairs, and he's like, why? And they're interviewed with Hoda, and she basically asks like the visit at Trina's, and everyone wants to know what happened in the attic, and Millie's like, oh, we played Uno. So she asks like, are you guys an official couple? And they say yes. But then Hoda kind of switches, and she goes to bring somebody out, and it is the original drummer from the band, which is Beat's bio dad, the blackmailer.
Dun, dun, dun.
And so Beat is like, he is shook, but he has to act like he doesn't even know this guy. And so they shake hands or whatever. And his name is Fletcher, I believe. Yeah. So he starts talking because they ask like, what happened? Why do you leave the band? And he says he left before the final tour, but he did run into Octavia once, who did seem to miss him, which hints at like when she got pregnant. Mm-hmm. He said he plans to be there at the reunion on New Year's Eve. So they cut, and Hoda asks Mel, like, can you come to my dressing room to take a selfie? So Fletcher starts talking to Beat, and he says, like, oh, I can tell, like, Mel really loves you, and she would probably do anything for you, including paying me. So he's basically threatening to blackmail Mel now. Beat is like, stay away from her, or I'll kill you. And he's like, you kill your own father? And so Beat lies, and he's like, you know what, like, it's not real. It's for camera. Like, don't you recognize that? And he's like, I'm not even going to talk to her again after the show's over. So Mel comes back and tries to grab his hand, and he crosses his arm, so she's instantly hurt. And Beat's like, I basically have work to do. Like, he's thinking, like, he wants to distance himself because he knows, like, on camera he can't not respond to her. And I was so annoyed.
Yeah.
Like, communication, people. So Melody asks him, like, is something wrong? And he says, like, it's my turn for a break, which, ouch. Because that's basically when she was like, I need my 2 days. So he's kind of throwing that back in her face. And she immediately thinks, like, it must be because, like, she said they were official on camera. And he says, yeah. So we switch back over to Mel. It's now the 22nd. And it's been 3 days since their breakup. she cut her bangs. She pulled the ultimate girl thing, which is like cut your hair or dye it red. And she said she watched 2 TikToks and decided to do it. So she's walking home with the crew, and everyone's been asking her about the breakup. Beat has been calling Danielle nonstop, like, about her safety, we can tell. And when she gets to her house, her mom is outside, like, with her guitar case. And she says she's there because she didn't like how things left in New Hampshire. But she says, I'd still rather die than reunite. And that like, basically just breaks Mel down. Like, she just, everything she's been holding in for 3 days, she lets loose. And Trina, like, basically tells her, like, she tried to warn her about B. And Mel tells her, like, Octavia watches the show, and Trina turns the camera and gives it, like, the finger and was like, sit on it and spin. I love them. And so Danielle comes in and is like, oh my God, the server crashed because they have so many viewers. So she's like trying to get that fixed. So they get a moment to talk off camera, and Trina tells Melody that like she was pissed, but she's also like really proud of her from playing her song that night. And she's like, when did you learn how to play? And she tells her about the lessons she took. And Melody admits to her mom, like, I measure myself up to you. And Trina says that she actually doesn't talk to her like friends at the compound about Mel because she knows that she was a sucky mom. And so Mel tells her like basically everything that's happened with Beat, and they are basically trying to figure out like what happened that made him change. Like, something obviously happened. And she tells her mom that they both were like really surprised about Fletcher being there, and Trina's like, I'm sorry, what? And she's like, he's the reason that the band broke up. And she's like, it's just like him to wait in the shadows to terrorize them. And that makes it like click for Mel that like he's the blackmailer. And so her mom's like, we have to get to Octavia. So they go to leave. So we flash over to Beat, and he had been sitting like watching the live stream. So he's panicking because the server crashed. So that's when he runs out and like calls Danielle, and she's like, she's fine, but like, I gotta get off the phone. Like, we're headed somewhere. And he admits like he's never asked his mom about like the thing with his dad. And I wondered this because I was like, do they know? Like, does his dad? I was like, maybe his dad already knows that he's not the dad. I'm like,
and then he's doing this for nothing.
You've been paying him all this money for years, and you just didn't even have a conversation. So he has decided like he's gonna go to his mom and come clean. So he heads over there, and he finds her in her office, like, and she looks like shocked. So he turns his mic off and closes the door and locks it. And she said that basically she had seen the Today Show, and she called somebody she knew there to complain because she's the HBIC, and that someone sent her a video, and they basically had recorded the conversation that Beat and Fletcher had backstage after the show. And so basically she realizes that her son has been getting blackmailed. And she asks him, like, how long have you known? And so he tells her, you know, about the 5 years and everything. And he goes to comfort her, and the housekeeper comes in and was like, oh, I'm sorry, I would have told you that Beat was here. And she's like, there's also other people here. And so Mel and Trina come in. And Trina tells the cameras, like, okay, you've got your reunion, now give them some privacy. So they agree. And basically she tells Octavia that Beat's been being blackmailed. And Octavia is like, yeah, I know, I just found out too. So they start to play the recording, which Beat's like, can you not play this whole thing? And Mel asks Beat, like, did you get a paternity test? And he says, yeah. So, like, it is for sure his dad. And basically what happened is that when, like, it all started out, Octavia was dating Fletcher, and he broke it off with her and then lied to Trina and said that they had broken up, or, you know, whatever. And so that basically so he could sleep with Trina. And so that's kind of what started the whole riff with the band. And then Octavia, like, admits, she was like, the only reason I slept with Fletcher again is because I was so jealous that I wanted to prove, like, that I could still get him. And then she ended up, you know, getting pregnant. So basically, both of the moms are pissed, and they want to, like, it's so funny because, like, Octavia goes, like, full, like, warrior mode, and Beat's like, I've never seen her act like that before, because she's like, I want to crush his balls, and, like, all kinds of stuff. So Trina basically is like, they're going to use the reunion to trap him and take care of it. So we switch back over to Mel, and even though, like, she's come here with her mom, and she realizes, like, why he did everything he did, she's still not, like, ready. And Beat tries to talk to her, and, you know, he says, you know, can I talk to you? And she tells him, like, you lied to me, and you broke my promise, basically. And she's like, it'll be better if I just left. And he basically begs, like, and we love a man that begs. But she's like, no, and she tells her mom, like, can you catch an Uber? Which I'm surprised that she would even know how to do that. But okay. And so she's like, catch an Uber, and Octavia's like, are you sure you don't want to stay for dinner? And she's like, no, I can't. So Beat's like, well, I'll walk you out. And so she doesn't tell him no. And she's like, I don't want to be filmed. Like, I just want some time to myself. So he, like, tells her there's this, like, a back elevator. And he says he's taking her to the bathroom, but he sneaks her to the elevator. So once they're on the elevator, of course, he stops it. And he's like, I love you. And he tells her, like, he knows he was lying. And he says, I wanted to propose to you before all of that happened. And she tells him, like, well, imagine if you were me. And I had basically put my walls up to you like that. She says, you left me in the dark for 3 days. Like, and that's true. Like, you could have came to me after the show. Like, any of those things. But you didn't even do that. Like, you froze me out, and then you were just going to continue to freeze me out. And he's basically, you know, like, he didn't want to, you know, he didn't want to be on camera with her after that or whatever. But again, he could have just, he was blaming himself, but you have to involve her in the conversation. So she says she can't trust him, but, you know, he pins her up against the elevator, and things get hot and steamy. And they end up having sex again in the elevator. But he's like, you're still leaving, aren't you? And she says yes. And she basically is like, I have to heal myself. And she says, I'll see you on Christmas Eve. We switch over to Beat. And the live stream has actually been stopped since then because the server kept crashing. Like, there was too many viewers. So he's on his way to Rockefeller Center for the reunion. It's Christmas Eve. And his parents are in the car with him. So his Rudy and Octavia. And his mom says that she has a good feeling about tonight. No one can stay mad at someone for that long. And he tells her, like, well, Mel's not mad at me. She just can't be with me. Rudy says, stops him when they're getting out of the car. And he says, you're my boy. And he says, I was there for you the day you were born. You're my son, right? Oh, my God.
I know. It's like,
oh, my God. He's such a good man. And Beat's like, I'm your son. You're the only father I need or want. So, of course, there's a crowd, and they have signs and pictures of him and Mel, and everyone's there, and then, you know, they go backstage. So, everyone's there, and, of course, Fletcher, like, is the last person to arrive. And Beat is supposed to introduce them, but he's like, shouldn't Mel be on stage with him? And Danielle's like, I mean, yeah, I guess. We thought she just, you know, wouldn't want to. And Fletcher looks at him and is like, well, it looks like a real relationship to me. And Beat says that's because it is. Like, he's not hiding anymore. So he goes on, and he brings Mel on, and they go to announce the band. And, of course, they're sharing a microphone, so they lean in to talk, and, like, their lips kind of touch. And he just turns and kisses her on stage. And then he turns and just walks off stage and keeps walking because he can't, like, deal with the rejection, basically. So we switch over to Mel, and she wants to go after him. But their moms come out, and Octavia takes the mic, and they basically drop a bomb. So they tell everyone why the band broke up. They point to Fletcher and, like, say it was him, and they make security drag him off the stage. And Octavia tells him, like, the secret's out, and, like, she'll tell the entire world if she has to, but he'll never get another dime from them. Both of the moms go back on stage, and they want to open up with a tribute to their kids. And it starts with a video from that very first meeting of Beat and Melody at Danielle's office with the beignets. And then it starts playing all of their moments from throughout the show. And then it goes to that day when they first met when they were 16. And it's Beat on camera, and he is talking to the camera guy. And he basically asks him, like, oh, is that your first time meeting Melody? And was it what you were expected? And he's like, she was better than I expected. Oh. So Melody is looking for Beat, and she's like, okay, I'm gonna look for Danielle. And she sees this closet is a little interesting, and she opens it, and Danielle and Joseph are hooking up in the closet. She's like, oh God, okay, I'm so sorry. And Danielle's like, okay, do you need help? And she just asks where Beat is, and she says, like, she doesn't know the camera. He didn't want the cameras to follow him, and since the show's basically over, she didn't make them. So she runs outside, and of course all the fans are out there, and they're like, oh, we can find him. Like, they're like pulling up like Instagram, and they're like, he was last spotted, blah, 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 blah. And then there's like some, like, of course there's some fan, I can't remember what her name was, but she's like the smart, like, everyone's like, oh, I hate that lady. I hate username, blah, 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 blah. And she comes up and she's like, hi, I'm username, blah, 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 blah. And she's like, he was seen here. So Mel, like, forgets her coat, and she runs, and she's able to find him. And she tells him, like, you were more than I expected to. And he basically gets down, like, on one knee and has a ring. He's like, just take it. And, yeah.
That's it.
That's it.
El fin.
That was
the end.
Yeah. So, they're in love, and it was cute. And it's Merry Christmas.
Yes, such a good book.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
I did too.
What did you rate it?
I rated it 4 stars.
Okay.
And hold on, there was a was there a reason why I rated it 4 other than just rating it 4? I'm not sure, potentially, but yeah, 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. But yeah, what about you?
I gave it a 4.5. I really enjoyed it too. I don't know why I didn't go all the way to 5.
Yeah.
I don't feel like it's a 5, but it's a really good book. Like,
same.
Yeah, that's all I can really say. I mean, I like Tessa Bailey, but I really like this one. I love the comedy in it. I love it's different, I feel like, than like the main male characters, especially in the other ones that she wrote. Beat's just different, and I really like how he was written.
I do too. And their relationship, like, they mentioned soulmates in there a few times, and it definitely feels that.
Absolutely.
And kind of like, for instance, like, my best friends and I, we don't have to see each other for however long, but when we do, it's like we haven't skipped a beat, and it seems like that to them. They met one time, and it seemed like they have been friends forever. But then when they meet, 14 years later, it's like they haven't skipped a beat.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
No pun intended. I know. Yeah. No. I really like it. It was really good. She did a really good job with this one. So this is probably my favorite of hers. Right now. So yeah. Okay. Well, do you want a fan cast?
Yep, let's go for it.
Okay. So I'm gonna do Beat last. I did the moms and then Beat in Mel. So for Mel, I did Emily Carey. Do you know who she is?
Mm-mm.
She I know her from House of the Dragon. She was young Alicent, and I follow her on TikTok. I think she's just like fun and goofy.
Who was it?
Emily Carey. It's spelled like my last name.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think she could be like. I think she can be fun and goofy. So that's her. For Octavia. So I was going off of vibes, but this has nothing to do with what they look like. I don't know if they even say. But for Octavia, I was thinking like a Devil Wears Prada Meryl Streep.
Okay.
Because like she's high society, but like, and maybe even younger than that. But just like the air of what like Miranda Presley has, but like a rock star. I don't know. And then for Trina, I was thinking like a Nicole Kidman, but like a Practical Magic Nicole Kidman, but like a mom. So again, going off vibes. And then for Beat. So the reason I think this was funny is, so of course I related him to Christian Grey. So I mean, I don't think like everyone didn't love like Jamie Dornan as Christian Grey, but I feel like he could be good. But I actually casted Chris Evans for him, which is funny because the rumor is that Chris Evans does have like a sex dungeon. So hey, maybe he's like a real life Christian Grey. But I think Chris Evans would be great at that. Those are my picks.
All right. Okay, so for Octavia, I casted Demi Moore.
Oh, okay.
Kind of going off the vibes, like you said. So that's funny that we casted the same person for Trina.
Oh my gosh!
So when you said, I was trying not to like make a face.
You did not.
But I was like, oh, yeah. So I was like, because I was looking at him like, is it Nicole Kidman? And I'm like,
she's married to, who is she married to? He's like a,
he's an actor, I believe.
I thought he was like a rock person.
Maybe.
Yeah, she's married to Keith Urban.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was like, I kept going back to Nicole Kidman, and I'm like, just fit. I mean, obviously somebody that needed to like fit that kind of rock star, but also like hippy dippy kind of feel.
Absolutely.
So for Melody, I casted Alexandra Daddario. I don't know what all she's in, but I think she's adorable. And
she is.
And then for Beat, I casted
Percy Jackson.
I casted Dylan O'Brien.
We love Dylan O'Brien.
So yeah, those are my castings.
I love it. Oh yeah, she was in White Lotus too. Okay, yeah. Okay. Questions? Anything that you had for this?
Yes.
One? Okay.
What was your favorite scene?
Oh, I don't know. Honestly, I like the compound scene when they like meet Trina. Cause I like Trina. I mean, I like both of the moms, but Trina's just like, and like that, and like going to jail, like that whole like little. That's probably my favorite.
I think my favorite would probably be maybe when the moms are reuniting, so to say, again, when they go to confront, everything about the blackmail and stuff. Just seeing Octavia and Trina's personalities together.
Yes.
Which then I liked the concert scene too, because just seeing them work together was really cool.
Yeah.
But yeah. Was there any like particular scenes per character that you liked? Like, for instance, my favorite scene that focused on, well, not necessarily focused on, but that kind of highlighted her personality, Melody's, was the scene when they were meeting with Danielle, and she was like, you said there'd be beignets. Absolutely loved that part.
I like the gala when the snowflake.
Oh, yeah.
Like that, she's just like trying to like, it's just so funny. Like, she's just so funny to me, and I like it. So yeah, and then I guess like with B, I don't know if there's any specific scene for him, but yeah, I really do like Mel too.
Yeah. Yep, I'm a Mel stan for sure.
You're a Melody head. Magnificent Mel.
Was there any scene that you either didn't particularly like or felt like it could have been a little more fleshed out? Not necessarily a scene. I did not I felt like the wedding stuff was entirely, like, that was too much. Even, like, the talk about, like, kids. I was like, I don't know if that's necessary. Yeah. And I've seen people say this about this, so I knew it wasn't happening, but it's like, there's like an underlying hint that they could be related, and I was like, where is this going? I was like,
I knew it didn't go there, but I was like, and it never gets brought up, but I was like, I kind of don't like that.
Yeah, going through it, I was like, oh my god, please tell me that they aren't
like
related, because that would be
the worst.
An ick. Yeah. A total ick.
That would be an ick of mine. No, that I'm not into.
And she kind of breezed over it, but made it sound like they weren't. So
yeah, like she quickly mentions her dad, and then
and how like they did. So like Octavia hooked up with Fletcher. Was that his name?
Yeah.
And then Trina did, and then a couple months later, Octavia did again.
Yeah.
So,
which would make sense because he's born in December and she's born in like there's like 3 months in them. So like by that point when Octavia gets pregnant, they were like Trina was done with Fletcher. So but it's just like ugh.
Up until that point, I was like, oh my god, like please tell me that this is not where it's going.
Please do not be it.
But going off of what you said when we started it, it's not necessarily a book about Christmas, but it is at the same time. Yeah. Like, it's not, the focus isn't Christmas.
Right.
But
it's just Christmas time.
Yeah, it has a holiday season, and
yeah, there's Santas.
Wreck the halls.
That's enough for me. I don't know.
3 Santas at that, and getting into a fight. Like, I feel like that would be a perfect cinematic moment right there.
Yeah, that would be great. Like, that whole scene is hilarious. I'm sure, like, the live stream and the viewers, like, yeah, I'm sure it was like, oh my god.
Well, I think that's all I have.
So, next week is actually 5 Total Strangers by Natalie D. Richards. And then after that, our last episode of the year is our wrap-up. So, we will be discussing But again, like I said, if you would please like, share, rate, leave comments, reviews on social media, on Apple, on Spotify. We would really appreciate that. And I think that's all I got.
That's it for me.
All right. Bye.
Bye.